Writing in competitive spaces or competing in competitive spaces all comes down to providing some form of differentiation, whether it's your product or your customer service, or a unique perspective on approaching the content. Original ideas are rewarded because, again, the human being is the emphasis, and what the human being does with the information, the content that you provide them, how they share it, the classic social indicators, that's really going to be the measure of the quality of the content, more so than what the search engines think about it. Because especially as we evolve to more active and dynamic content, video content such as this, the search engine spiders are not crawling this video content. Now the transcription down below, absolutely, they're going to crawl that, but they're not crawling the video itself. And as the web moves more and more towards moving images and video content, it's going to be even more oriented around the human being and measuring what the human being's doing with each piece of content. So the content quality comes down to how the human being interacts with it, and the human being's going to interact with it based on if it's original. Just like anything else that we encounter in life, whether we're looking professionally or personally at something online, it resonates with us rather quickly if it's of high quality, and it doesn't if it's not, and we tend to move away from it very quickly. We have an innate ability to see if something is relevant and targeted and something that's interesting to us, and we'll draw in, and if we find it that interesting, we actually want to be the person that ends up sharing it to whoever's next. That's at odds with the idea of we're going to put something out there and search engines are going to find it, and organically our traffic is going to grow because the search engines like what they found. So no matter the competition level in a space, ultimately it comes down to the uniqueness of the content that you're providing, or, and often, as is often the case also, the unique idea behind it. So sometimes you can write something that's not the greatest piece of content, or you can produce something that's not the greatest piece of content, but if the idea behind it is capable of resonating with people, that's a piece of quality content. If you can combine the quality of production and content with the quality of original thought or ideas, that's how you really have winners. But quality content takes one or both of those. Often lost in the translation is the fact that bad SEO is oriented around appealing to search engines, and good SEO is oriented around appealing to the actual user, the actual human being that's visiting a website. So long as your content is built with that human being in mind, and so long as you end up doing well by that human being when they visit, Google's metrics are going to show that, the algorithm is going to reflect that, and they're going to follow suit. They're going to follow the people, as opposed to the older model where the people followed the search engines. SEO can't work like that anymore. It largely doesn't. If you're following the search engines and hoping to draw the search engines, that's probably a great formula for failure in SEO. Whereas if your experience-based or narrative-based type of content is written and created for the human being, that's going to resonate with the human being, assuming that it's quality, and from there Google's going to follow the human beings. So the experience really comes down to, again, the level of content, the level of quality of the content, and the level of engagement the user can have with the content. It's true that just about any content, any piece of content that you're working with, if you're trying to make it the best possible piece of content in that space, and you even come close to succeeding, you're going to have some good metrics around that. If, however, you're intent on drawing search engines, you may have temporary success, a month or two at a time, until the next algorithm update essentially unmasks that strategy as, maybe perhaps gray hat. And I call anything that's pursuing the search engine over the user essentially gray hat. I think it is about audience first. That's the most critical thing that I've had in any of my successful blogging or writing forays, has been thinking of audience first for me independently, and I've talked with other writers about this. Sometimes it works well for them and sometimes not. I actually isolate it to one individual audience member. And typically what I'll do is, after persona research, understanding the proper segmentation of our customers, once I do that, then I will in my mind come up with somebody that I know personally or individually, and well enough to understand their sense of humor and that type of thing, and I will start analyzing, okay, they fit within this persona, this is the person I'm writing to, and I'll actually start writing as though I'm writing them a letter, and then hone it into an article from there, but always keep them as the audience. So that's the long of it. The short of it is that you should always have an audience in mind. That should be based on persona research that you've already done, and everything that you produce online or offline in the form of content should have an audience first and foremost. So audience-based space-based content is probably the best way to succeed. You have to find a knowledge level. So if you lack the passion in any given subject, and for me it was PCI compliance, which is credit card issuer compliance laws that everybody who takes credit cards has to abide by. And I was having to learn that and write about it. And actually the other side of passion is that thoroughness. And essentially what I learned was, okay, I have to write about PCI compliance today. I don't know anything about it, and I'm not really all that interested in it, and I'm certainly not passionate about it. But the flip side of the passion is, okay, I need to dive in. I need to understand this as thoroughly as any expert in the field, and then I need to find a way to write about it that doesn't translate the dryness, that actually translates the merit of the content, why it's important to that blog at that time, for example. And that comes from being thorough and making sure that everything that you set out is something you can be proud of, and is in essentially every blog post you write or every piece of content you start producing, you should produce with the aim that this is going to be the best, most authoritative and definitive piece that's been written in this space thus far. And if you can't pursue that and come close, then you need to reanalyze what your subject matter is and why you're writing about that. Because it seems like a lofty aim that you should want to make something the best as possible, best it can be in that space, the best in that space. That sounds very ambitious, but in reality, if you aim for that and you're thorough about it, you're going to come close enough that you're going to put something out compelling and interesting that's going to draw visits. And the other side of that, like I said, is perhaps counterproductive even, where you're writing about something and you don't have that thoroughness and or that passion, and before you know it, you've produced something that's just as boring as everything else. And ironically, the reason that you wrote about it because it wasn't well addressed, and then in the end you end up checking it off the list as that's done, but all you did was contribute to another one that makes the space incomplete. So find a way to make that space complete.